7. That fish just jumped 7 times. Sometimes I love just sitting out here and just watching the fish, watching the birds eat the fish. Peace. Peace is not always easy to come by. And when I find these moments of peace, I cherish them because it's not easy. You know, there's no easy way out. But you know what I wish? I wish that people could learn to embrace the process of dying much like we embrace the process of birth, because both are inevitable, right? The moment you take that breath after you're born, that first breath, you've made a contract that the only way out is death. Period. And that's not a bad thing. It's just what it is. Just like birth. Birth is what it is. It is what it is. And dying is what it is. If more people took the time to realize that death is the contract of birth, and we gave it as much time, energy, love, money, and support as we do the birth of an expected and wanted child and an unwanted child. Birth, just period, whether it's expected, planned, wanted, or unwanted. Once that child takes that breath, the contract is they don't get out alive. And that's not bad. That's fine. And we grieve. We feel bad, sometimes alone, because we don't want to share with people or burden other people with our grief, because we feel like we've grieved too long. We feel like we shouldn't feel this way. But we should. We have every right to grieve. And we should all plan for this. This is what happens. We spend, at the minimum, 9 months, well, depending, to plan for a birth of a child, right? I mean, that's a fish jumping. We spend time getting the room ready, buying clothes, having parties, getting gifts, planning for their future, figuring out their schools. But when it comes to death, we don't do that. Not nearly as much as we should. The day that a child is born, they should get a universal or whole life insurance policy. That's not morbid, that's planning. Everybody should go through life with a life insurance policy from which they can borrow and set up their life and estate. Every parent, every grandparent, every godparent, every auntie, every uncle should get a universal or whole life insurance policy from which they can borrow and or create a trust. Not only just to bury them, right? That's what we always say. I just want enough to bury me. No. Mm-mm. Mm-mm. We need enough to give that next generation a leg up. We need enough to have them not scrimp and save and start all over every generation. Every generation shouldn't be starting over. Our death should be a celebration, right? Because it's what we agreed to when we took that first breath. We should prepare for it as we do birth. It's hard and it's tragic, because the one thing that's different than birth is you have that child with you into adulthood, and in death they leave. But that's the contract. That's the deal we made. That's the deal we made. And it would be nice to be able to grieve if that's all we had to do. But mostly in death, in the process of trying to grieve the loss of our loved one or loved ones, we're figuring out finances for the funeral. We're figuring out clothes. We're figuring out assets. We're figuring out wills, or maybe they didn't have a will. How do we divide up their things? How do we not fight over grandma's china or dad's house? The best gift anybody could give the people they leave behind is a clear path of how they want their things divided, how they want their end of life to look, where they want it to happen, even who they want to be there, much like we do birth. Have a death plan. The last thing you need when you're trying to just love on, feel the love, and comfort yourself and others, the last thing you need is to have to figure out money and dividing things. Give the gift of death to those that are alive. Period.